situation, you see Puerto Rico puts up a shot over here on the left, and then you're going to see ball goes up. Caitlin's right there, and you want the ball in her hand on a situation like this. But Angel takes it, and nearly.
When you step back and really analyze what unfolded across these games, a much bigger picture starts to emerge about the United States women's national basketball team, and it's not just about wins or losses. It's about identity, structure, and understanding how to maximize elite talent. Because when a team this stacked shows two completely different versions of itself in back-to-back games, that's not random. That's a signal. One of the clearest examples comes from that now widely discussed transition moment. Caitlin Clark is already ahead of the play, clapping for the ball, positioned perfectly to receive the outlet and push the pace. This is exactly what elite point guards are trained to do: turn defense into instant offense. She's wide open, ready to create an advantage before the defense can even set. But instead, Angel Reese takes the ball up herself. Again, this isn't about blaming one player. At this level, versatility is expected. But that moment exposes something deeper than a single decision. It shows a lack of defined roles. Because when your primary playmaker is asking for the ball and doesn't get it, the issue isn't skill. It's structure. It's clarity. It's identity. And that same lack of clarity showed up repeatedly during the game against the Puerto Rico women's national basketball team, where possessions often felt uncertain, transitions slowed down, and players hesitated in situations that should have been automatic. What makes this even more noticeable is how sharply it contrasts with the first game against the Senegal women's national basketball team. In that matchup, everything looked exactly how Team USA is supposed to look. The ball moved with purpose. Players understood their roles. The offense flowed naturally. And at the center of it all was Clark, orchestrating the game with 17 points and 12 assists in just 19 minutes. That wasn't just production, that was control. Every possession in that first game felt connected. Cuts were timed perfectly. Shots came within rhythm. Teammates looked comfortable because they knew where the ball was coming from and when. That's what happens when a team has a clear offensive engine. But then, just one game later, that clarity disappeared. Against Puerto Rico, the same roster looked like a completely different team. The offense slowed down. The ball stuck. Players seemed unsure whether to attack or defer. Instead of flowing into actions, possessions stalled out. And when that happens, even the most talented players can start to look out of sync. Now, context matters here. These aren't meaningless games. They're qualifiers for the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup under FIBA rules. Yes, Team USA has already qualified, but that actually makes these games more important in a different way. This is the only real opportunity for this group to build chemistry before the main tournament. There's no long training camp. No extended preparation period. Just a few days of practice and then immediate competition. That's why the lack of cohesion in the second game stands out so much. There simply isn't time to experiment with lineups or roles that don't work. And yet, that's exactly what it looked like. Guards who should have been initiating offense were standing off the ball. Forwards were bringing the ball up in half-court situations. The natural hierarchy of the offense seemed to disappear. And when that hierarchy disappears, so does efficiency. This brings us to another key layer of the discussion: lineup decisions. Caitlin Clark didn't start either of the first two games, which, from a traditional coaching perspective, makes sense. Veterans like Chelsea Gray have earned trust over time, and it's standard practice to lean on experience early in tournaments. Coaches value stability, especially in international play. There's also a fundamental coaching principle at play: don't pull players too quickly after a mistake. Let them work through it. Let them regain confidence. That approach builds trust and long-term consistency. So when Gray struggled in the first game, giving her another opportunity in the second wasn't surprising. But here's where philosophy meets reality. When the same struggles continue, and when they start affecting the entire flow of the team, sticking to that approach can become counterproductive. At some point, adjustments aren't just helpful, they're necessary. Because basketball isn't played in theory. It's played in real time, where performance has to guide decisions. And that leads directly to the most important question: what actually works on the court? The answer becomes clear when you watch the film. In the first game, whenever Clark was on the floor, the offense had rhythm. When she sat, that rhythm faded. When she returned, it came back. That's not coincidence. That's impact. But in the second game, her role changed. She spent more time off the ball, often positioned in the corner while others tried to initiate the offense. And while those players are highly skilled, they don't replicate what Clark does naturally. Because what she brings, court vision, timing, anticipation, is instinctive. You can design plays. You can adjust spacing. But you can't manufacture instinct. That's why trying to replicate her role collectively doesn't produce the same result. It's not about effort. It's about fit. And when players are placed outside their natural roles, the entire system feels less effective. So when you combine all of this, the transition confusion, the contrast between games, the lineup decisions, and the shifting roles, you start to see the real issue. This isn't about talent. It's about identity. Right now, the United States women's national basketball team is caught between two approaches. One is a structured, equal opportunity system where responsibilities are shared. The other is a more defined system built around a primary playmaker who controls the tempo. Both can work, but trying to do both at the same time creates inconsistency. And that inconsistency is exactly what showed up in the second game. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require clarity. Define roles. Establish hierarchy. Decide who initiates the offense, who pushes in transition, and who controls the pace in key moments. Once those decisions are clear, everything else becomes simpler. Because at the highest level of basketball, talent isn't enough. Structure is what turns talent into dominance. And until that structure is fully established, moments like the one we started with, where a wide-open playmaker is calling for the ball and doesn't get it, will continue to define the conversation.
Game 1, which was exciting, especially seeing Caitlin Clark back on the floor, scoring 17 points, 12 assists in 19 minutes, and seeing her move fluidly. And it's like, okay, she is back. And when she's on the floor,
now, there's another layer to this conversation that can't be ignored: the starting lineup decisions. Caitlin Clark didn't start in Game 1, and she didn't start in Game 2 either. For those closely following the team, that wasn't entirely surprising. Veteran leadership matters in international basketball, and players like Chelsea Gray have earned trust through experience. Coaches often rely on that experience early in tournaments, especially when trying to establish stability. That's standard practice, not just for Team USA, but across international competition. And from a coaching philosophy standpoint, there's logic behind sticking with a veteran even after a rough performance. Pulling a player too quickly can affect confidence, rhythm, and overall team morale. Coaches are taught to give players a chance to recover, to make a positive play, to find their footing. But that philosophy has limits. When struggles continue into a second game, and when those struggles begin to affect the entire team's performance, the same approach can start to work against you. What begins as patience can turn into hesitation to adjust. In this case, when the starting unit struggled again, it raised questions about whether the commitment to that approach was helping or hurting the team. Because at some point, decisions have to shift from principle to performance.
Totally out of sync. The lineups were not working. It wasn't any fun. It was frustrating, and I don't think it was just frustrating for the people who were in the chat with me, and I don't think it was frustrating just for me. It was frustrating for the players. It had to be. I believe it was certainly frustrating for Caitlin Clark. Now, let me say this. Let's just get it on out here, okay? There are people who are upset.
What makes this situation even more serious is the context in which these games are being played. These aren't casual matchups or low-stakes exhibitions. These are qualifiers for the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup, governed by FIBA, where every game contributes to preparation at the highest level of international competition. Yes, the United States women's national basketball team has already secured qualification, but that doesn't reduce the importance of these games. In fact, it increases it in a different way. This is the only real opportunity for this group of players to build chemistry before the main tournament begins. The preparation window has been extremely tight. A short training camp in Miami, followed by immediate travel and back-to-back games, that doesn't leave much room for trial and error. Every possession, every lineup, every rotation decision matters more because there's so little time to adjust. And yet, in the second game, it looked like the team was still experimenting with combinations that clearly weren't working. Players stepped into roles that didn't align with their strengths. Guards who should have been initiating offense were standing off the ball, while forwards found themselves bringing the ball up the court in half-court situations. The result was a style of play that felt chaotic. Not fast-paced chaos, the kind that comes from aggressive play, but disorganized chaos, where decisions lack cohesion and structure. For a team that is widely considered the most talented in the world, that kind of performance stands out, and not in a good way. This isn't about overreacting to one game. It's about recognizing patterns early enough to fix them before they become habits.
Kara Lawson and the coaches will tweak the lineup, because this is a good time to see how things flow and with whom. And so I said before game 1, I don't think she'll start, but I don't think the starting lineups will be the same. They'll be played with, they'll be experimented with. And I get it. You've already qualified for, you're not, it's qualifiers, but you've already qualified as USA. So these players have not been playing.
When you step back and look at the bigger picture, what's happening with the United States women's national basketball team right now isn't a talent issue, it's an identity issue. The pieces are there. The skill level is undeniable. But the way those pieces are being used hasn't fully aligned yet. For a team with this level of talent, the expectation isn't just to win, it's to dominate with clarity and purpose. And when that clarity isn't present, even dominant teams can look ordinary. The solution doesn't require reinventing the roster. It requires defining roles. Who handles the ball in transition? Who controls the tempo? Who initiates the offense in critical moments? Once those questions are answered clearly, everything else becomes easier. Because when players understand exactly what's expected of them, the game simplifies. Decisions become faster. Movements become more natural. And the team starts to look like a unit instead of a collection of individuals. And right now, that's the step that still needs to happen.
Be surprised if Caitlin is not starting on Saturday's game, when USA takes on Italy. That's going to surprise me. Perhaps the coaching staff already had the starting lineups figured out and said, this is what we're going to do the first game, this is going to do, or they're working it on the fly. Chelsea Gray did not play well in game 1. She did not play well in game 2.
It's important to clarify something here. This discussion isn't simply about whether Caitlin Clark should be in the starting lineup. That's a separate debate with its own factors. The bigger issue is what actually works when the game is being played. And when you look at the film, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. In the first game, when Clark was on the floor, the offense flowed. It had rhythm, direction, and purpose. When she sat, that rhythm faded. When she returned, it came back. That kind of consistent impact isn't coincidence, it's influence. But in the second game, her role shifted. She spent more time off the ball, often positioned in the corner, while other players attempted to initiate the offense. And while those players are talented, they don't replicate what Clark does naturally. Because certain skills like court vision, timing, and instinctive playmaking aren't easily transferred. You can design plays, you can adjust spacing, but you can't manufacture instinct. And that's where the disconnect becomes clear. It's not about effort or ability. It's about putting players in positions where their natural strengths can actually impact the game.